Okay, so our final unit is managing conflict, politics, and power, right? We've looked at managing conflict in some amount of detail in one of our earlier units. So today we're going to look a little bit more in detail on politics and power. So when you look at organization from a political perspective, organizations can be seen as loosely structured coalitions of individuals and groups having different preferences and interests, right? In any organization. So some people might have a different interest. Some people might want to socialize more. Some people might want to stick to the guns and make sure that everything is done in a certain way. And so you're going to have little pockets in organizations, whether it's through departments or whether it's through groups, right? So, for example, shop floor workers may want secure high-paying jobs, and top executives, they may be interested in diversifying the organization into new businesses. Marketing department, they might be interested in developing new products and markets because that's what they're about, marketing. And the best way to market products are for you to have new products on the market, that kind of thing. Or even if you have older products, but new ways of marketing those older products. So that might be their interests, right? And the production department, which is where I'm normally at, right, may want to manufacture standard products in the most efficient way. So you want to try and improve your efficiency in your production. So everybody has their own little bit of areas that they want to be improved or they want it to be sustained, right? So these different groups or coalitions, right, compete with one another for scarce resources and influence. And by scarce resources, you can just imagine our own university where, you know, there's always going to be some financial constraints. So different departments want different things. So they're basically competing for these scarce resources. It could be even human resources where one department is understaffed and need to add 2 more staff members, but they can't because there's a cap on the number of persons that the university can have on its roster. So they're competing, and if they need to bring on a person, sometimes it has to go to the Ministry of Finance for them to approve that structure, that kind of thing. I know that was the case when I was at the UDC. If we wanted to add persons to the structure once a year, we would send up a structure, current structure, and a proposed structure, and then Ministry of Finance would approve or disapprove that structure because adding more persons has obviously financial implications for any organization. So yeah, they act to preserve or enhance their self-interest while managing to arrive at a sufficient balance of power to sustain commitment to the organization and to achieve overall effectiveness. So although they're looking out for themselves, they still need to balance that with looking out for the organization of which they're a part. So given this political view, attempts to change an organization often threatens the power, the balance of power among groups, thus resulting in political conflicts and struggles. So we're not talking about our regular PNP, JLP, NDM, and whichever other parties we're talking about now, right? Just want to make that distinctly clear, right? We're talking about within the organization, politics within the organization. So individuals and groups will be concerned with how the changes will affect their own power and influence, right? And they will act accordingly. Right? So some groups will become less powerful with the change that we're implementing. Because remember now we're talking about organizational development, and we said with organizational development will come some changes, right? So some groups will become more powerful and more influential, some less powerful and less influential. So those powers is threatened by the change will act. Those persons or groups that are threatened by the change will act defensively, right? And seek to preserve the status quo because they don't want the change, right? They don't want that change because their power will become less. And we're talking about all from the top all the way down to the bottom in terms of your organizational structure, right? So you're talking about all the way up from your president down to your shop floor worker, right? So some examples. So they may try to present a compelling evidence that change is unnecessary. So they're trying to influence you as the OD practitioner or the change agent to tell you that the change is not necessary, right? Or that, just tweak it a little bit. You don't need no major change. They might do that. Or that basically saying you just need minor modifications. And by minor modifications, anybody remembers what we said that could be? Another name for minor modifications or minor changes? Anybody? Because I kind of want you guys to use these terms, know that you're going to be wearing
it. Incremental.
Incremental, exactly. Incremental changes, right? So on the other hand, right, those participants who will gain power from the changes will push heavily to get the changes instituted, right? Perhaps bringing in seemingly impartial consultants. This is just an example to legitimize the need for change. So that might mean the president who wants that change to happen might bring in a consultant to help you as the OD practitioner says, yes, we need that change. Consequently, significant organizational changes are frequently accompanied by conflicts of interest, distorted information, and political turmoil. The last sentence, guys, or last bullet point, very important. Consequently, significant organizational change, so we're talking about quantum change now, are frequently accompanied by conflicts of interest, distorted information, so wrong information, not so right information, right? And political turmoil between managers, departments, people, that kind of thing. So OD practitioners can use power strategies that are open and above board to get those in power to consider their OD applications, right? They can help power holders to confront the need for change, so they can help the president to confront the need for change and can ensure the interests and concerns of those with less power, to ensure that those with less power are considered. Because you don't want to just make a change without considering persons who have less power or who it's going to affect their power base, lessen their power. You want them to have some kind of input also, as we mentioned in previous units, right? You want everybody to be a part, everybody to understand that kind of thing, what is going to happen, right? So the OD practitioner can actually do that, right? So in managing political dynamics of change, we say it includes 3 basic activities: assessing the change agent's power, whoever the change agent is, and it could be or could not be the OD practitioner. It doesn't have to be the OD practitioner, it could be somebody else in the organization who's the change agent, right? So you assess the change agent's power, because that's important. You need to identify key stakeholders, right? And by identifying key stakeholders, you're identifying powerful individuals or groups with an interest in the change, right? Interest in the change. And these could involve unions, because they're always, if anybody has worked in a union environment, you will understand that unions are a very important part of any change process, right? I mean, they can influence your change process, I mean, to the nth degree. Anybody, did I ask this? Does anybody work in a union environment? Can I just speak up if you work in a union environment? Anybody? Unionized environment?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Kyle, you're what? BITU at BOJ?
BOJ, yes, sir.
BITU. Yeah, Roddy Spencer was a good friend of mine, so I know. He has deceased. He's deceased now, but he was always talking about union works at BOJ. Suzanne, you're part of a union? No? Oh, you're a smaller company, right? And that's why a lot of organizations don't like when unions come into their space. You guys know that, right? Because unions speak on behalf of staff. But I always say, if you run an organization and you run it well and you run it fair, you don't need unions. But chances are human beings are not like that. It's just the way it is. So in big organizations, unions are a fixture. Terry Ann, you're which union at UTEC? UTASO? Which union are you?
Administrative, so UTAS.
Oh, administrative. So not UTASO, because UTASO had a AGM last week, Thursday. Very good meeting, actually.
Oh, I heard, but I'm not invited to that one.
Yeah, excellent. I have to admit, I mean, and I've been on management. This is the first time actually I'm a part of a union because I've always been in management. So I've always met with all the union heads like Senator Cavan Gale.
Okay.
He's BITU. I've always had to meet with him. I used to invite him down to Ocherius at UDC meetings. So we're very good friends. Even the conference that I had the other day, I invited him to speak and it was no problem. Randall Valentine, who's the head of the NWU, also a good friend of mine. We speak from time to time. Shagari, you're with our union. Let's see if your internet is still available. If
Yes, sir.
Oh, what union is it? A special union or is it one of the regular unions?
It's not one of the regular unions, sir.
Oh, okay, okay.
Sir, but that's just sometime where it's necessary because sometimes staff members are laid off wrongfully.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And that's the point I'm making. That's the point I'm making, that unions benefit because, I mean, unions are benefiting most organizations because human nature in management sometimes are not fair, you know. And we talked about nepotism and all of that in other units.
Making
So
decisions.
they might have brought in somebody when they don't want to let them go, even though they're the last one in. You guys remember HR, your LIFO and your FIFO, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So, you know, sometimes they're not upholding that principle. Everyone remembers LIFO and FIFO. I'm just asking because I don't want to set things on. All right, last in, first out, first in, last out kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes, it's an accounting term.
Well, it's also an HR term.
Okay.
Last into the organization must be the first out if you're laying off.
Yeah,
Right. So I know it from HR.
which usually don't work.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that's where we are. Marlon, I know you came on late. Are you
Yes.
in a union organization? Forget where you work again.
No, sir, I'm not.
Okay. Kamala, sorry. Kamala? No, your internet has gone. All right. All right. So
Well, I used to be in one, but not anymore.
Oh, okay.
From the old sugar company.
Oh, okay. And the more you move up in an organization, the less union you're involved in. It's just how it is. But it shouldn't be a them against us. It should be unions working with management for the betterment of the organization, for the betterment of the staff. Because as you well know, when staff are comfortable, when staff are happy, when staff have high morale, your productivity will go up, right? So it shouldn't be them against us. It should be a team thing. And I've lived by that in all organizations that I've worked at from the management side. I'll give you stories about how union and management, how I used to run my thing. If we had an issue or a complaint and the union had to get involved, what I would do, I would meet with the union head first. We come to an agreement, right?
Sir,
And this is how we're going to approach it. We're going to go into the meeting. We know the outcome that we want, but the union is going to be firstly for the staff, and I'm going to be firstly for management, because we have to do our jobs. But at the end of the day, we come to an agreement. Whether it is the staff has to be, it's not always nice, it's not always amicable, because sometimes the staff have to be punished. But that's a disciplinary action, which could even include dismissal. But you know, the fact of the matter is the union and the management has looked at the situation and has come to some kind of a agreement as to where you go. Sometimes you won't agree, sometimes you have to take it to arbitration, but it's just the way it is. Go ahead, you had a point?
yes, sir. I realize that the union persons are actually in interviews nowadays. like in the interview process, where a staff member is moving up or
Oh,
applying
really?
for
I've never done that. So
Yes,
thanks
sir.
for letting me know that, but that's not something that I've ever done. And
Yes,
I
sir.
don't think
I think it's among staff members, like, but not persons who are coming from outside and newly joining the organization. But if a staff member is, he apply for a position, for example, the union is there to ensure that there is no discrepancy between the persons
yeah,
asking the
you want to make sure the
questions.
process is fair.
Yes, sir.
Basically, okay. I've never heard of that. I must tell you. I mean, but I guess any management can put in policies that they want. But I don't think that's a policy that. Oh, really? So
Yeah,
okay.
because I think they make sure that positions are advertised, because there are times when maybe management believe that somebody is better for the job and they will go ahead and hire them. But
Okay.
the union ensures that all positions are advertised, because even the one we were talking about the other
No,
day.
advertise is one thing, advertise is one thing, but being a part of the selection committee is another.
Oh, for management, yes, that does happen too. It depends.
Okay.
Depends on what level.
Okay.
Yeah, the level.
All right. Good. So back to the point, unions are an important part. They're one of the main stakeholders in implementing a change. So you want to know who they are, who's your union head, who's your union rep, that kind of thing. You need to identify them as stakeholders, right? Your departmental managers, you're going to want them. And of course, nothing can happen without your top level executives, right? Nothing can happen without your top level executives. And then you want to influence the stakeholders. So you want to gain the support of the stakeholders to motivate the masses, the majority of the persons, right? You need the critical mass for that change to happen. You don't just want one department to are ready for the change. When it's an organization-wide change, you want to motivate the majority of the organization to be ready for that change. And in terms of assessing change, let me go back. We said there are three in terms of managing the political dynamics of change. We say we need to assess the change agent's power. That's whoever the change agent is. You need to identify the key stakeholder and you need to influence the stakeholder. So let's go to assessing the change agent's power. And this is something that we can look back at also. So let's look at their power. So the change agent will have influential power based on their knowledge. So if it's somebody who's the company and people know that has a lot of knowledge about change process and all of that, people will respect them for their knowledge, right? So they can just play it straight, as it says here, in terms of their power strategy. They can just play it straight, right? Because people know them. And in most departments, you know the persons who know everything, right? And sometimes it's not always the manager. You guys are aware of that, right? Sometimes it's not always the manager.
You mean the informal grapevine?
No, but that also exists. That also exists where somebody is their personality.
Sir, I never knew how much the grapevine contributed to a lot of things in my institution.
So the grapevine, let me say, the grapevine is the talking around, right? Nothing formalized, but people speak. That's what you call it. Right. That's what you call it. Grapevine. Right. So yeah, the grapevine is strong in most companies. Most companies that have issues with communication, the problem is they allow the grapevine to be the mode of communication, which is always bad. Because when you have a grapevine, remember when I said something to you and you said the same something to somebody else, something changes all the time. It's never ever the same thing that I tell you. When I say never ever the same thing, verbatim then, it's hardly ever the exact same thing I tell you is what you tell somebody else. You guys know that, right?
Did you know? Yes, sir. Did you know that whenever we had some group activities, like team building activities, there's this game that you play. I don't remember what it named, but it means that I'm going to whisper something in your ear.
Chinese telephone.
Chinese telephone.
Yes.
Chinese telephone.
Yes.
And you bring it to the front, and whatever was said at the back is never, ever, ever what is heard at the front.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that is something that I realize is so true, because I have a coworker, don't make it slip of your business. Come out.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
Everybody know. Yes,
Yep.
and it
Yep.
never
Yep.
come back the same way.
Yep. No man, I have friends, and if you don't want something to go out, you better not say it to that person. Because
And it is, remember, son, me tell you that kind of
Mhm.
behavior that don't
Yeah,
work.
yeah.
That don't work.
And some people like the fact that they know everybody's business. You've ever seen those kind of people?
Yeah, man,
For them, that's power for them.
It's important for them to know.
Right. Exactly.
And sometimes the same person that you confide in, they confide in somebody else. So they're going to say the same thing. So they're going to say to the same other person, don't tell nobody.
No, that's exactly what Rule just said. Don't say I told you so, but it's just, the way it is.
Gosh.
Sir, it as bad as you and I don't talk, but you need to know what happened in the meeting I just left from, and you're willing to come and sit and say to me, is what happening there? Regard, you don't care if we're not friends. You just want to know so badly what happened in the meeting, and there's nobody else to tell you. You're willing to put your tail between your legs to come and ask. That is how important other things are to people. I am amazed.
Yep.
Yeah.
So back to assessing the change agent's power. So so power you can have, or you can wield that power because people know that you know everything in the organization. If it's a technical organization, which I've worked in a couple of departments where that one engineer who knows everything, if him said go so, that's correct. You don't have to double check. If he says it's whatever the situation is, it is what it is. And then there's other people's support where you can get support from, and you can use social networks for that kind of thing. But then the main one is personality, charisma. The persons who have this charisma, they can influence change, right? They can influence change and groups and persons within the organization because people just love them. They just like to be around them, and they can influence change, or their power strategy is, as you said, not exactly grapevine, but they can go around the formal structure of the organization, right? They can go around. So you want those people, you want to have those people on your side also, because they have power. Also, even though it's not coming from the president, they will have power. All right. So then we move to identifying key stakeholders. So identifying key stakeholders can start with just a simple question: who stands to gain or lose from whichever change you're going to be implementing, right? So those stakeholders you can find. So once the stakeholders are identified, you can do a mapping of their influence, right? You can create a map of their influence. So the map could show the relationship amongst the stakeholders in terms of who influences whom and what stakes are each party, right? So you can do a simple mapping. You basically just draw that person, where they are in the structure, who they influence, because some people can influence even your president, even though they're not even in your president's office. They're not a vice president either. Maybe they go to the same church, believe it or not, right? They socialize together, they go to drink on a Friday night kind of thing. Well, I guess I could say used to go to drink on a Friday night, but you understand what I'm trying to say, right? So you can identify key stakeholders that way. Maybe they're from the same ethnic group, so this would provide change agents with information about which people or groups need to be influenced to accept and support changes. All right. I want us to look at a case study, page 177. So let me see if I can cue that up. A second, please. Where is my read on this now? Are you guys seeing this?
Which version do you have, sir? Just go to edit. Go to
Yes,
edit.
sir.
Where?
Go to edit. Is it
Oh, it's
or
the same
view?
one you have. Okay, I was looking
Edit.
for
Let me
icon.
see, edit or view. What drop down for edit?
Uh,
No, it's view
it
then.
was view,
It's
yeah,
view. It's view.
yeah. View. Read mode.
Read aloud. Read out loud, sorry.
What's going on here now? My internet problem.
Oh no, let's see go. Chloe.
Let me see.
I don't see it anymore, sir. Hmm.
Read out loud.
Go back again. We'll ask you to read the entire thing.
The other time I had an icon where I could just click.
Did you update? Reset it?
Probably. Let me see. Read out loud. All right. Can you find 177? I'll share my screen with you. It's not.
Oh,
All right. Read to end of document. Read this page only.
no, so read to end of document.
Yeah.
So start from beginning.
Not hearing it. Page 176.
176. Part 2, the process of organization development.
No, we don't want that.
The strategy
Going
of
back too far.
very consistent with an OD
Put your
perspective,
cursor where you want
and
to
thus it
start.
is the most widely used power strategy in OD. It involves determining the needs of particular stakeholders and presenting information about how the changes can benefit them. This relatively straightforward approach is based on the premise that information and knowledge can persuade people about the need and direction for change. The success of this strategy relies heavily on the change agent's knowledge base. He or she must have the expertise and information to persuade stakeholders that the changes are a logical way to meet their needs. For example, a change
I wanna
agent
stop
might
this
present
now.
diagnostic data, such as company reports on productivity
hold
and
on.
absenteeism or surveys of members' perceptions of problems, to generate a felt need for change among specific stakeholders. Other persuasive evidence might include educational material and expert testimony, such as case studies and research reports, demonstrating how organizational changes can address pertinent issues. The second